So we've got the first question from John Wood from Lee Marley. Gents, how do you think more widely the industry can best respond to the Building Safety Act? I'm going to come to the NHBC first.
Oof, the thing that's challenging us most right now is the competency piece.
Yeah.
I think that if we, as an industry, can come together and agree what good looks like in terms of the competency for the different categories of individuals who need to be professionally qualified and certified, then we will be in a much better place. Right now, there's a big hole, I think, in most of our organisation systems as far as competency and management of that competency is concerned.
Mike?
Well, yeah, I completely agree, Chris. Every business is going to have to determine who's competent to do the jobs that they're doing and have a way of measuring that competence going forward. That's a kind of one-liner in the Building Safety Act. It has enormous implications. We're all wrestling with how to deal with that. But I'd go one stage further. I think what we can do is embrace it, embrace the principles that are behind it, and do the right thing going forward. I mentioned in my presentation the podcast from the public inquiry. Frankly, it's woeful. It's not a good indictment of our industry. We have to step up. We have a responsibility to deliver safe buildings for the people who are going to live and work in and visit them. So embrace this act. Let's make the most of it to bring our industry up to a proper level.
Thank you, Mike. Bill, from the British Board of Agreement.
Yeah, thanks for the invitation today. Hi, Bill Hewlett from BBA, as you say. Didn't have a chance to make a presentation, but could have pulled the socks off you with it. I think the Building Safety Act, it's very much something to embrace in its spirit as much as its word, and I think we've seen far too much gaming of systems. That's a word that came up a lot in Dame Judith Hackett's report, for example, and we've seen that through the inquiry. I think to add to what's been said from my own experience, and I'm really a civil engineer by background, been at BBA a couple of years now to take a leadership on technical issues there. But within that industry, there's a lot of people getting together in communities of practice. And I think that's a hugely strong part of the industry, and we could embrace that in the building construction industry. So gatherings like today, you're setting the example, Gareth, which is great.
Thank you.
But let's think more broadly about that and get a real consensus. Let's find out what good looks like and share that amongst ourselves.
Got a question that actually probably is absolutely up your street, Bill. Explain a bit more how you expect people to use a BBA certificate, and how are you developing what you do in response to the Building Safety Act?
All right, okay. I'm going to do a little rain check first. So hands up if you know what a BBA certificate is, just to get a temperature in the room or mood in the room. Okay, so that's 50% maybe, so that's quite interesting. So the BBA was set up, just give you a little bit of history, just 56 years ago now, to validate the claims made by manufacturers for innovative products. So, we're in a place of innovation today, we're looking at innovative product today, so that's very much BBA's bag, if you like. So we take innovative products, look at what manufacturers are claiming those products are good for, and we validate that, or not, of course. And about 10% of application certificates do fail. Many people have to sort of turn down their claims a little bit because they can't be properly validated. So that's kind of where BBA sits. Our main product areas are the envelope and the roof. So the sort of outer weather interface and components for building, but not exclusively. That probably accounts for 60% of our market. We've got about 1,000 Agrimol certificates, and these are the ones which aim to look at the fitness for purpose of a product. So that's quite a broad-reaching, far-reaching claim. Is a product fit for its purpose? Now, that's not a question of compliance, and I draw a very clear distinction between passing a test or meeting a given standard, which is something you can do in a laboratory, or you can do in a X works at the factory gate. Is it actually going to work in practice? And that's a different question. So that's where we address things. We work very closely with Chris and his team at NHBC. They place, as you saw in his presentation, place a lot of reliance on third-party certification, looking for a range of product characteristics, durability, in this case, water tightness, fire, and so on and so forth. So those are all properties that we assess. So it's a pretty thorough process. It's great to know there's another contract heading in our direction, Gareth. Thank you for that.
Our pleasure. I'll keep people in the living at some point.
That's what BBA kind of does. Sorry, it was the second half to the question, which I'm starting to read from here.
It's how are you developing what you do in response to the Building Safety Act?
Right, okay. So the Building Safety Act is asking for more rigour. So how do we change? How do we develop? Questions of, for example, the golden thread data that needs to be incorporated. That is something we can certify alongside physical characteristics. Obviously, as I was saying, the fitness for purpose of the product needs to be assessed in the light of the new regime.
Excellent. Just expanding on that, for the NHBC, is there some changes for yourselves due to the Building Safety Act?
With regard to third-party certification?
Just kind of the approval of products that you accept on sites, or is it still a case of really using the BBA and others?
Well, we've got our legal requirements, I suppose, if you put it that way. So the requirements to conform with the Construction Products Regulation. The recent report that's been sort of on the boil now, or simmering away since April 21, was released this last week. There's a lot to chew over there. Yeah. We're still digesting the outcome from those recommendations. A lot of work to do with UCAS. I think that's apparent that there's work to do in that regard. Complexity. It's not an easy system to work with. If you're a specifier, you probably struggle. If you've got all this whole range of different certification sets and standards and test data, what is and what isn't acceptable. It's not easy. So yes, we've all got work to do, I think, there. But we need to get our own house in order with that regard, because I think that we don't make it easy as a warranty provider either. So by site assessment is great, but what we could really use is probably a clear set of guidance to say this would pass and this would not.
Excellent.
Making black and white out of the grey, if you like.
Yeah. And Paul, in terms of our approach to BBA literature and promoting the products, what's your take?
Yeah, so I think it's something we're taking seriously with all of our literature. I've been with ACS for 8 years. Probably the last 6 months moved into a new role around specification and the actual data around our products, and we're taking it seriously. So every single data sheet or publication we're putting out there is fact-checked, both by ourselves, and we're about to actually engage with another party to fact-check all of our information as well on our data sheets to make sure that it's consistent and it actually is correct. But then we do engage quite a lot with parties such as the BBA to look at our products. Because our products are innovative, they don't meet kind of the normal test regime standards. Wall ties, for instance, do. It's quite a prescribed method. But the innovative products that we're pushing these days, the only approach is for people to believe that the product does what it says on the tin, essentially, is to use parties like the BBA to give you that accreditation that that product will do what it's supposed to do.
Cheers, Paul. I think when you get your bags or you go out in the reception area, we've got some brochures there which actually kind of spell out the differences in products and taking data off people's BBAs, and I'd ask you to have a look at them to actually understand the differences between what's actually published and what actually sits on a certificate. So I think that's one of the biggest things that's been learnt, Bill, from Grenfell, is actually looking at people's certificates and understanding what's actually on them.
I think it's a really key point. That communication, BBA is an organisation I've been aware of throughout my career, and although I've only been with it a short period of time. And I have to say, I've always been very impressed and rather wondered how they did it. And it was a great honour to be asked to join the organisation at a senior level. It is staffed with PhDs and people of that character. And yeah, they're great at writing theses. Are they good at writing something that man in the street can understand? And I think, that is something that we can work on. We need to work on that communication, moving things forwards in that regard. And I think we've seen that. So yes, they are quite big, quite complex documents. The half of you that haven't seen them, go and download a certificate. They're free for everyone to access. You will find it's quite a detailed assessment. And someone to say, this is certified, therefore it's good for everything that anybody might care to use it for. That's just rubbish. These are carefully crafted, and you need to react to the detail of the information that's there. But having said that, there's always scope to move forward, to move on, and as you've done with your products, that's something we must all commit to.
I think there's been some really interesting court cases of late where people have challenged the fact that it had a BBA certificate, and they took the viewpoint that just because it said BBA on it, they hadn't bothered reading the detail behind it. And they unfortunately lost the case, because actually it's the responsibility of everybody in the room, including us as a manufacturer, that what's on our BBA and what we publish in our literature is actually the solutions that actually is being certified, isn't it? Yeah.
I think, one of the things about the the Act and the regulator, the two regulators in effect that it brings in, is it gives that police in the room. You know, BBA is an organisation of 200 odd people. We're not a police force, and we can't be, we never can be. We're a certification body. So I think working in closer partnership with the regulators is going to be something we have to look at.
Just following up on that point, do you think the building safety regulator will have sufficient resources to deal with the applicable buildings come October?
Not me personally.
Well, I'd be interested in everybody on the panel, to be fair.
Yeah.
Oh,
So I think no, it's a simple answer. They are building up their expertise, and you mentioned the two regulators, and I should mention that there is the Office of Product Safety as well. So there's a building products regulator as well that's based in Birmingham, as it happens. So the HSE are trying to get 400 people into their realm. The product regulator is trying to get 150, all from a standing start, all trying to get people to, and we know how difficult the employment market is generally. You know, people don't want to move. So building those skills quickly, and you know, I think HSE are on record as saying that some of the stuff they're doing could take 5 to 10 years really to get to full speed. So it's not a quick process. But that's what I meant about embracing it. Yeah. So we can all embrace this. We can all embrace the principles now, not try and steer around it and try and because actually that's our responsibility.
I think when the HSE strike, they'll strike hard. I mean, I guess everyone in the room who's a contractor anyway has had some sort of brush with the HSE at some point. I mean, whether you regard it as a salutary experience or not, I leave to each of you individually to judge.
Sure.
It can be in some ways, but it's always painful. And I think that is how they will behave. And I don't think it's going to be a sort of cosy, proactive relationship in that regard. Yeah. But I'm sure they will step up, and indeed they already have, as it happens. I mean, there have been cases of, not by the BSL, but by the Office of Products and Safety, they've already taken action against at least one supplier that I know of.
Yeah. Excellent, thank you. Obviously the NHBC has been, or representatives of the NHBC have been involved in the Building Safety Act, and what's your view?
Well, we're primarily involved through BRAC. That's our kind of main focus right now. As an organisation, we continue to work with these people. They would probably be, very happy if 400 and or 550 people just became suddenly available with the skill set they need. They're not out there. We have to make them ourselves. We have an academy in-house. We train our own surveyors. We're making our own fire engineers through various different organisations. If we can't, buy them, we have to make them. And I think this is what the HSE is going to face up to eventually as well. That we need to have the academic institutions, we need to have the structured training plans in place. That means that we grow these people as opposed to just trying to bring them in and hope they're going to be able to survive in this new world we're all going to be working in. They just do not exist.
Excellent, thank you. I'm going to take the final two questions, but if you do have any more questions, you can continue to send them through to the QR code. We'll take a copy of them and then we'll write back out to everybody that's in the room or who signed up with the answers to those questions. So one from Henry from Grayson's. What's the mechanism for ending the temporary exemption of combustible cavity trays?
I can help with that.
Oh, thank you, Mike. Excellent.
So first of all, how did it come about? We had a little bit about that for clarity. Obviously, the time when everything became as it was, there was this requirement for non-combustible materials over 18 metres, and I was called into meetings at the Ministry for whatever it was those days, Housing and Communities, now the Department of Levelling Up, and our discussions there with Brian Martin, who was then in the civil servants, so that we haven't actually got some of these products, the solutions are not there. And we need to have some sort of mechanism to bridge the gap. And we agreed that there would be a temporary exemption at that stage, and it was for a couple of years. And we also agreed that the manufacturers, we talked to all the manufacturers, and they go away and develop solutions like ACS did. And having done that and encouraged manufacturers to make that investment, frankly, I was deeply upset that the government then decided to extend the exemption. There was no need. Because the businesses had stepped up, it wasn't just ACS, others had stepped up, and there were solutions in the marketplace. And so, therefore, there was no need for that exemption. I think it happened by mistake, effectively, the timing, but government couldn't reverse out of it. So what we've technically agreed with them now is that exemption will be come to an abrupt stop in June 24, and that they'll have a mechanism to make sure that any pre-planning commissions cannot continue to carry on. So that's the kind of agreement we've got with English government. That's been reflected in our discussions with Scottish government and Welsh government as well. So hopefully that's what's going to occur, and we'll have that hard stop. In the meantime, what I'm delighted to see, and the actions that NHBC have taken and others, for the most majority, people are doing what I keep saying: embrace it, and embrace the, and recognise that we can do the right thing now. We can use non-combustible products, so why wouldn't we do that right now? Bear in mind that for the first time ever in Grenfell, we've seen retrospective legislation. So you're no longer sure that the government won't go back sometime in the future and say, you shouldn't have done that, even though they said you could at the time. So.
Thank you. Does anybody else like to chip in, or has Mike covered that off?
Yeah,
No,
I think it begs interesting questions about the legacy stock, doesn't it? I mean, life is ever thus to some extent, but it'd be good if the consumer market drove it to some degree, I think, and just said, we're not buying, or we're paying less, or whatever it happens to be, because that will come back to bite. So if we can create some sort of pull model rather than a push model, that'd be good.
Yeah, absolutely. Just doing the right thing for doing the right thing's sake.
Yeah.
Always a good trait. The final question then, and I don't know which one of the panel would like to answer this one, but will Gateway 2 have statutory response times, and what will be the applicant's option if the building safety regulator can't cope with the workload? Oh, I'm going to know the answer to that question.
I don't know.
Yeah, not sure, but I can find out.
Excellent, there you go. Better than a politician trying to make an answer up, isn't it? We'll get an answer to you and we'll go back. Could I just ask you all to give a round of applause to the exec panel? Thank you very much.